Hi everybody. So in today's video I'm going to talk a little bit about things that you really can save money on if you move out to the Philippines or if you're here for a long stay, and also things that cost quite a bit. Stick around. Okay guys, so in today's video I thought I would do something a little different, and I thought I would discuss things here in the Philippines that in the West are extremely expensive, but out here in the Philippines are very inexpensive. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video, because I'm also going to discuss some things that you can expect to pay the same, if not more, and even sometimes double in the Philippines. Alright, so the first thing that I was going to talk about is probably the biggest expense right away, and that would be rent. And rent is probably the biggest savings that you are going to get when you come out to the Philippines. Now, you can save a lot of money from rent, or you can spend a lot of money like the West if you really want to. It just depends on what kind of lifestyle and where in the Philippines you want to live. You could live out in Makati, BGC, in a high-rise, really expensive penthouse suite condo and spend a lot of money, still much less than the US. Or you can live out in the province somewhere in a nice apartment and save a lot of money. Me personally, I have an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, and I only pay around $300 or so per month. So that's where the big savings comes in the Philippines. So rent being number one, it's just a huge savings. A lot of you guys, I'm sure, can attest to how much you're paying in the West already, and it can be a lot, right? But here you can really save a lot of money. And and in the West I never really had an opportunity to live in a high-rise condo with an infinity pool and a gym and 24-hour security, because that was kind of out of reach. But here in the Philippines it's not. So rent being number one, that's where you can save a lot of money. I'm going to go through some different little things that are small as well. So the second thing is going to be kind of a two-part thing. It's food. Now food, if you're eating out in the Philippines, a dinner for two typically runs you around $10, maybe $10 to $20, depends on where you eat. Again, it just depends. If you're eating out in Makati at a nicer restaurant, you can spend a lot of money. But again, nowhere near what you would spend in the West. Now, if you go to a fast food restaurant, prices are pretty similar to the West. They're not so far off. If you go to typical Filipino food, you can save a lot of money. If you're and they do have some good food here. They've got great barbecue and things like that. So I could go out and have a dinner for two with drinks and have a whole chicken breast barbecued with a side of rice and a Coke. And so dinner for two, and we would spend $5, around 250 pesos. So you can have a good meal for very inexpensive, or you can have an higher end meal and spend about $20, which would be about $10 per person. You can have a pretty good meal for that amount. So food, you can save a lot of money. Now groceries, it depends on what type of food you eat. If you eat kind of local foods and chicken and seafood and stuff that they have here locally, you'll save a chunk of money. Not a huge amount, but you'll save a chunk of money. Definitely you'll save money on eating out if you're the type that likes to eat out, which me personally, I am. I eat out like 5 meals a week. Next, believe it or not, haircuts. In the States, my hair, a lot of guys can relate. My hair grew quite fast, and so I would get haircuts literally twice a month. Now, back in the U.S., I would go to like Sports Clips or one of these places, and it was almost $20 for a haircut. I would leave about $5 for tip. So I was spending about $50 a month. Now, if you add all of this into all your bills, then it all adds up. And here, believe it or not, I typically get a haircut for around 30 to 40 pesos, which is less than $1 US. And rounded up with tip, I'm usually spending about $1 per haircut. So a month, where I was paying $50 in the States, I am now paying like $2 for 2 haircuts, and that's a big savings when you add that all in with the rest of your bills and stuff. Another thing that you can save on is you don't need to have a car payment anymore. You don't need to have car insurance, maintenance. Those are big costs that you have in the West. Here, you can just take a Grab. You can take a motorbike, or you can hoof it and walk. But you can also buy a motorbike. I'll get into that in a second here. But Grab cars and taxis and stuff, for $5 you can go all the way from one side of town all the way across to the other side of town. Very inexpensive for taking transportation to wherever you need to go. So you can save a lot of money that way. Just you get rid of a car payment, you get rid of the insurance, the maintenance. Those are big savings. So that is another area where you can save a lot of money. Just dating in general, dating and going out to the movies, or going out to eat, or taking your date on to some attraction like some waterfalls. Most of these things are very inexpensive, and dating in the West, you go out for a movie for two. Well, typically you would go out to dinner, movies and snacks at the movie theater, and you're spending over $100 easily. And here in the Philippines, you're probably spending $20 at the most, and that's if you go dinner and movies and stuff. If you take her to some place like the beach or something like that, you might not be spending hardly anything, So dating can be very inexpensive, and so you can actually date often, right? In the West, at over $100 per date, how many dates are you going to be going on for the average person? So dating is another huge thing that you can save money on. So these are just some general things. Also, believe it or not, cell phones. Cell phones you can actually save a lot of money on if you buy some alternative version instead of an iPhone or maybe a Samsung. They have a lot of good phones out here like Oppo and Vivo and other types of phones that are good phones, and you can save a lot of money by just buying one of these inexpensive phones out here that pretty much does everything that the other phones might do. Okay, so now let's talk about some things that might actually cost the same and maybe even cost more. So let's get back to food. Now, if you want to live eating local foods and things like that, and the local things that they have, like the produce, then you're probably going to save money on your food bill compared to what you were spending in the West. However, if you want to maintain like a Western diet, you are going to be spending more money. Markup is about 30%, if not double in some cases, for things like cheese, like specialty items and deli meats. You're going to have to go to a specialty store to get a lot of this stuff. And so those things can cost you almost twice as much, believe it or not. So a lot of people come out here and they think it's going to be really cheap, but if you're sticking to a Western diet, it's not so cheap. However, you're spending a lot less on a lot of other things. Now, electric, for example, I feel like I spend almost the same as what I did in the West, to be honest. I run my aircon a lot, so if you live in an area like maybe Valencia or Tagaytay or Baguio where you got some cooler weather, then maybe you won't be, because you don't have any heating bill. So if you're from the north where you're getting cold weather, then perhaps electric's going to be cheaper for you. But for the size of your place, and the electric can actually be kind of expensive here. It's not that cheap, especially compared to other Asian countries like Thailand and Vietnam and Malaysia. Other things that aren't that inexpensive are things like your internet. Internet honestly is about the same amount that I paid back in the U.S. So internet's not even that cheap. One thing that I forgot to mention about saving on money is your cell phone bill. I spend about $10 a month for a plan with data and text and call, and so it's only about $10 a month, which is extremely cheap. I think my cell phone bill in the States was around $60, $70, maybe even $80 at one point for my phone. So yeah, cell phone, you can save money as well. We've got food if you're maintaining a Western diet. We have internet. If you are somebody who likes specialty type coffees and go into coffee shops like Starbucks and stuff like that, if you go to coffee shops like that, they're really about the same cost as if you were to go into a Starbucks in the US. People expect that it's going to be cheaper. No, it really isn't. So guys, just a quick video about what to expect for some things that are really inexpensive, some things that are not so inexpensive. Also, if you do buy a motorbike and to get around town, you can even cut your transportation costs even further down. So guys, please share with me and tell me what, if you're out here in the Philippines and you're already living here, what things do you think are cheaper? What things do you think are just as expensive, if not more expensive? So this video is really for both people who are moving out here, perhaps. This is kind of good for a guideline to see what's going to be your biggest cost and what's going to be your least amount. Electronics are another thing that are pretty expensive here. 30% markup on like laptops and other types of electronics other than cell phones of brands that aren't as popular in the West. So yeah, again, guys, let me know what things you find are much less expensive out here. Let me know what things you find are just as expensive, if not more expensive. So guys, as always, if you like this video, please consider sharing it. Hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe and hit that bell notification. That way you are updated every time I come out with a new video. And I will see you guys next time.